Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and you know, I'm feeling a little weird on this episode, I have to say. This show has been going for about a year and a half and has really taken a lot of time to put together, to do the episodes, to do the website, all the, episode promotion, all that sort of thing. And it feels really weird that I'm pretty much at the end of all things. As of the date of this recording, I'm recording this on, May 7th. So you guys will get this in about a month. And as of this time, there's still been no date announced for the release of the new album. So the show's going to kind of just go on hiatus for a while, waiting for that to happen. I've covered all the studio stuff now, everything that Uriah Heep recorded that I could get my hands on. Actually, every song I'm aware of, I got a copy of and was able to do a presentation for you guys. So I'm really happy about that. It's been a lot of work, but every single episode I've enjoyed doing. I've thoroughly just loved digging into every song and really showing what this band has given us as fans, as listeners, as fans of music. There's so much in their catalog. It's really insane. So total covered songs, I think, was 307. That is a lot. That is really a lot. But 52 plus years, it's a long time for the band to give us stuff. And boy, through all the changes, through all the things that they've been through, one thing is consistent is their music has been highly enjoyable, at least to me. People will nitpick this album was better than that album or whatever bullshit, waste of time stuff that people want to do. But the fact of the matter is, just enjoy what you enjoy. If you could find some good in a song and you enjoy it, then listen to it. Share it with others. If you don't enjoy it, fine. No big deal. You just move on to the next song. I really am just amazed at how much of this band's work I have enjoyed. Even the songs where I was like, it's not one of my favorites, I still found something to say and love about that song. So it's really been an amazing journey. So we'll talk a little bit more about where we go from here at the end of things. But for now, it's Monday, guys. And, while this may be the last Monday for a while, this is kind of my last chance to give the shout out. So first of all, thank you to BMG for both the Everyday Rocks box set, 7 picture discs, 7 t-shirts, inspirational lyrical cards, a wall calendar. I mean, it is a really cool thing. And I have to say the picture discs, the art quality on the picture discs and the t-shirts are best I've ever seen. All bias aside, I have to say they're absolutely amazing. I love owning it. The picture discs are super thick and a little bit heavy, but that's cool. I mean, they're very durable. They're going to last a lifetime and beyond, I'm sure. Of course, I won't be here beyond my lifetime, so I won't be able to prove that. Also, the Everyday Rocks box set is really unique because I'm sure some other bands have done it, but I've never seen it where bands have released CDs based off of the members' picks saying, hey, if you want to check out our band, here's the songs to listen to hear what we're all about. They encompass a good variety of songs over the years and really interesting from members present and past to have those visions of the band and what they would recommend to people. It's a really cool idea and very inexpensive. So check that out as well. You could go to uriah-heep.com and the links to all those that are available. The Choices box set is great because there's nothing specific about it. You can just pick it up. The Everyday Rocks box set is cool because you can kind of custom tailor it to your size of t-shirt, but that also causes problems because quantities are running out. So if you're interested in that, last pitch to you guys, grab it while you can. Who knows what condition you'll find those in use someday. And your best bet is to just grab it now if your sizes are still available. But all that information is at uriah-heep.com. And also visit mick-box.net. It's a really cool site Dave White's put together. You guys all know Dave. He's been on the show more than anyone else, did the entire season of Live in 73 with me. A hell of a guy, does a great job with the website, some of the social media stuff. Yeah, just incredible, all the work that he's put into the show. Also, my patrons throughout this whole show, as they've come on board, have just been absolutely incredible. I want to thank everybody who's been a patron from the beginning. They haven't all stuck with me, but for the ones that have ever been a patron, even for a short time, thank you all very much. That means so much to me. I've said it every week, but I hope you know how much I mean that. It's just been incredible that people actually want to give me money for something that I'm just happy to do out of the passion that I have for Uriah Heep. Really cool. And those people that are still with me are at the $5 Easy Living tier. We have Kenny Wymore and Brad D. At the $3 The Wizard tier, we're talking about Peter Voss, Frank Teelgaard Mortensen, and William Rose. And last but not least by any means, at the $1 Traveler in Time tier, you have to wonder what kind of party is going on in their airtight gravesite. Thank you all very much. It really has just been an incredible journey. I'll be reaching out to you guys if I haven't already. You'll hear from me personally. Thank you guys so much. And as a last shout out, there's some other people that I want to thank. Of course, I'll circle back around to this when the show starts up again, but, I don't know how long it's going to be before the new album comes out. It could be months yet. So hopefully not. But I'll be jumping on that right away, of course. But I want to thank some other people too. Obviously, Cakewalk by BandLab, you have been my DAW or digital audio workstation since the beginning. You also take care of me on my other podcast, all the music I write. I've been with this brand since it was Cakewalk 4.2, I think back in the 90s sometime. And while I've tried Pro Tools, Digital Performer, Cubase, all kinds of stuff, still own all of those, but I almost never use them for anything because I'm so comfortable with Cakewalk. But I think it's kind of like, a word processor, a graphic editor, whichever one that you get started with and you learn the most is the one that you're most comfortable with. You can be the most efficient in it. So that's the one for you. The difference is some of these get very expensive. All the updates, you got to pay every year for the updates. Cakewalk by BandLab is absolutely free. Thank God, because I spent thousands and thousands on Cakewalk before BandLab bought it. It looked like it was going under. They saved it and they give it to us for absolutely nothing. But feel free to make a donation to these wonderful folks that have been so on top of updates and ask nothing from us except to enjoy it and use it as a creation tool, which I absolutely love. I've met them a couple times at the NAMM show. Wonderful people. Hopefully I'll be seeing them again this week while this comes out. Podbean. You guys are awesome. You guys are the host. You distribute it to all the wonderful places like Apple Podcasts, Amazon, iTunes, used to be Google. I don't think they're there anymore. But all the places that you guys listen to it, Stitcher Radio, all these smaller ones, the different podcast outlets, they take care of all of that. I just upload it to Podbean and they send it out to everyone from there. Thank you guys very much for hosting for me. Also, my graphic artist, Scott Lazinski, amazing guy. Went to high school with him, watched him draw every day in class. I mean, the guy is he was born to create things, and he did the logos for the show. Amazing work. Audionamics, well, you guys know how much I love Audionamics. There is a picture of me on my Facebook of me at the Audionamics booth when they were showing a clip of the demo that they used my other podcast for. And so I'm standing there in front of the screen that's showing my podcast, which is really cool. I look forward to catching up with you guys at the NAMM show this year. I will not do a podcast without Instant Dialogue Cleaner. I just won't. It saves me hours. It takes out car horns, children playing, dogs barking, airplanes landing, because I live right by the airport. Everything it does with just the touch of a dial. Absolutely amazing. There's other functions on there that I never had to use for me. All I need is that one magic dial, does everything for me. The algorithm behind it is absolutely insane. Isotope, I use some of their restoration products in RX. I use the D-Click to help with any digital clicks that appear in the episodes. Just takes them out in one clean sweep. Also, with Waves, I'm currently using Vocal Rider Sibilance and Deep Breath on the podcast. I'm actually looking at playing around because I don't think I need Vocal Rider anymore. I'm not sure. I'm going to experiment with that, but I wanted to wait until I was basically done with this podcast because I wanted all the audio to be very consistent. Also from Sonatus, I use their compressor. That's part of the original Cakewalk suite. I don't think it comes with the new version because they couldn't license it, but it is just a simple compressor that I use just to level out the dialogue a little bit. Also, I talked about Dave White, Uriah Heep's director of social media, great friend of the show, great friend of mine, wonderful guy. I've had such a joy getting to know him since we've started the podcast. And of course, everyone who has rated the show, who has left feedback on iTunes or Podbean, those are the only ones that I typically see. And everyone who has shared the show, it really means a lot to me that you want other people to hear it. Obviously, if you're getting some enjoyment out of it, then you want to share that with others who also might enjoy the show. Very cool. I appreciate all of you very much. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's been quite a journey. Now, of course, now that you've listened to all the episodes of the Magicians podcast here, and that is Magician apostrophe S, not Magician S apostrophe. That's a whole different show, completely different topic. Although I will say I have seen Chris Angel, I think 6 times now. Enjoyed every time I've seen the show. I haven't seen the new one yet. I'm looking forward to getting down there one of these days and checking that out. But since you listened to all the episodes and you're probably going to be looking for something more to fill your ears with, there are some great podcasts on the Deep Dive Podcast Network that this show is part of. And I'll start with my gateway drug into that network, Nate and John at the Deep Purple Podcast, going over everything that Deep Purple and their entire family has done, all the branches of the Deep Purple family tree, covering it all. Just an amazing show to listen to. I've been honored to be a guest on that show a couple times, was the host for the 3-year anniversary. Great guys, Nate and John. They've been on my other podcast as well. They've been on this podcast. Really great guys. I love hanging out with them. Also, The Simple Man at Skynyrd Reconsidered. This is a podcast on Leonard Skynyrd, the original lineup of Leonard Skynyrd. Terry T-Bone Mathley at T-Bone's Prime Cuts on the other side, interviewing some amazing people in the music business, including guys like John Oates from Hall & Oates and many, many others. Check out his show. It's absolutely fantastic. Great deep interviews. Rye at Sabbath Bloody Podcast, going through all the music of Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne. Paul, Joe, and David at In the Lap of the Pods podcast. That is a podcast based on the band Queen. Andy and Matt over at Hawk Binge, which is a podcast going into all of the music that was recorded by the band Hawkwind, who is still making music to this day. Over at Maiden A to Z Pod, we've got Eric and Jonathan talking about Iron Maiden, another historic hard rock band. Dave and Josh at Diary of the Madmen, the ultimate Ozzy podcast. That's Ozzy Osbourne, of course. And Ben and Sam at Universally Speaking, the Red Hot Chili Peppers podcast. George and Tom over at the Metal Gods podcast. That is a podcast going over the music of Judas Priest. And then we have Matt and Corey at And the Podcast Will Rock, a podcast based on Van Halen's music. Then we have John and Corey over at Backtracks Aerosmith Revisited, a very interesting spin on how to dig into the music of a band. With a roll of the dice, they are reviewing all of Aerosmith's song, working on making the ultimate mixtape. And of course, we have Clay and Rye at North by South, a song comparison and contrast of sorts. Another very interesting way to dissect music. All very cool shows, all part of the Deep Dive Podcast Network. Great people. I've had an opportunity to get to know them, and all wonderful people with fantastic shows. So check out those shows if those bands interest you. If they're one of those bands that you're like, you know what, I don't know that much about Judas Priest, go check out their show. You're going to learn a lot and decide whether you like Judas Priest as a band or not. But you probably will. Over at Metallicast, we have my friend Brandon. Great show. Over at GottaHearEmAll.com, Allegra has whipped up the histories of the live music of bands like Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Deep Purple. So much incredible depth and facts there that it will just entertain you for hours. And you can read that while you're listening to another podcast. And then, of course, Uriah Heep's manager, Thin Lizzy's manager, the Grand Bonnet Band's manager, Ace, has a show on Stitcher and YouTube called Ace on Music, also known as Ace the Music Man. Fantastic show digging into different aspects of the music business, stuff I would have never guessed at. He's had such a rich history with bands that he's managed, bands that he's met, bands that he's toured with, as a manager of, when his band is touring with other bands, he gets to know them. And so it's a really, really great show. Check that out. You can watch it on YouTube or listen to it on Stitcher. Either way, you're going to hear all the great stuff that he has to offer on that show. It's absolutely fantastic. I love when it comes out. I learn so much every time. But today, for our final song of the season, we are going to listen to a song under the name of Spice called I Want You, Babe, Behind the Green Shed Blues. And this is listed on the CD as version 14. So I have no idea what the other versions sound like. This is the only version I can find available. And actually, with all the Lansdowne Tape songs, the only other one, the one that I didn't cover this season, obviously was Born in a Trunk, because I covered that previously on one of the earliest episodes of the show. So I say we just find out what this song is all about. Let's get into it right now. Here it is, I Want You, Babe, with lead vocals by David Byron, guitar by Mick Box, of course, bass, Paul Newton, drums, Alex Napier, and keyboards, Colin Wood. Here we go by Spice. I love the production on this. I mean, just that slight delay or echo on the drums and then the reverb on this. It's so classic of this era of music. It's really wonderful to hear. It's so clean too. It sounds really good. The progression in the song kind of reminds me of another song. I had to think of what it was because, there's been so many that this band has recorded. But it's on Wonderworld. It's called Something or Nothing. It's the 6th track on the album, kind of similar to that, maybe a little bit of a precursor. Maybe when they were working on that album, they were like, hey, we have this riff and Spice. Let's see if we can do something with it. And then came up with this song. Really cool, though. It's very enjoyable. I like the feeling of this song. It's got a great mix. So let's see where it goes from here. Oh, you know what, though? I also meant to mention that those snare accents remind me of Walking in Your Shadow. Just that little extra snare hit, that's just off a little bit. Makes it interesting. It makes it a little bit jazzy. And it reminds me of that song, too. The vocals are sounding a little bit rough, and I don't mean that from a perspective of David's performance by any means. I just mean as far as the mix goes, like they're pushing that level where they could have been maybe just compressed down a little bit more, limited just a little bit more, and but they're like a little loud, right on that edge of clipping. It's like really uncomfortable for me as an engineer. I just want to put a little bit more compression on there. But his performance sounds great. I mean, he again sounds just a little bit lower than he would on the coming Uriah Heep album, but he still sounds really good. I like the simplicity of this song so far. It's a bit longer of a song, so I'm curious to see where it's going to go from here. But I feel like we have a lot of territory to explore. So let's just do it. Actually, the way that Alex is playing drums on this song really reminds me a lot of Walking in Your Shadow. It has a very similar feel to it from the drum perspective. I wouldn't necessarily think that people who aren't drummers would really pick up on that. Maybe you would. It's very possible. I mean, I pick up on guitar things and I'm not a guitarist, but I'm a songwriter, I do. But yeah, it's really interesting. I love the raw sound of this, though. I think what's missing on this for me is David's performance. I feel like I'm so used to hearing him sing a different way that I think had he been the singer he would go on to be on this song, I think it would be a much bigger song, because right now we're getting a very repetitive verse and we're getting some words from David, but I'm not feeling any like passion or anything. I feel like he's just singing it. And if it was like the David Byron from a year later, I think the song would be completely different. So I try to think of where, when you're going through a season like this, where you're going back in time and you try to think about where they were when they wrote and recorded and did these performances. And I have to do that with my own music too. When I go back and listen to something I did and think, why didn't I do this? Or I should have done that. I know better than that. Well, I know better now. I was where I was when I wrote that song. And I try to keep that in perspective. So when I talk about, if David would have done this, it would be better. Yes, but he was where he was at the time, that he did it. So taking this little last passage that we just listened to, think about, a song off of Salisbury or something where he's just got that grind, that passion, that I really am feeling this, and put that voice on this song. That's the difference I'm talking about. But when he did this in the late 60s, he wasn't that singer yet. He was this singer. And it's a good, solid performance for who he is. I'm just saying, you think about, had they redone this song or done it later in time, how different it would be with him singing with that level of, I don't know what the right word is. It's not aggression. It's not, maybe it's passion. I don't know. But just that lyrical skill to make the story come a little more alive, for me to feel like I'm in it. I feel like a casual observer this way. One thing that I love about this time in music, especially as a drummer, is how active the drummers were. I mean, these days you would never, unless the song was specific to this, you would never be soloing this much over a vocal. You just wouldn't do it. But back then, boy, it was all over the place. I think of, a song I mentioned on an earlier episode, Arthur Brown's album, The Crazy World of Arthur Brown. And Carl Palmer was one of the drummers on that album from Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And I don't know if he was on The Great Spontaneous Apple Creation. I tend to think that's him. It sounds like his style of playing to me, and the drums sound very similar to Fire, which we know he was on. There is a little bit of controversy on that album because they didn't write down who played on what take. So when they use the final takes, they have no idea which drummer is which, or some of the other musicians as well. So it's a really weird album, but they know that it was Carl's take on Fire, which was the most popular song. And when I listen to that drum sound and I listen to The Great Spontaneous Apple Creation, it sounds to me like it's the same drum kit. Of course, it could have been a studio kit. That could be somebody else playing it. So I still don't know. But in any case, that song does get a little bit jazzy, but there's a lot of fills on it. And it's similar in style to this, where there's a lot of like fills underneath the vocals and that you would never, ever, ever do today. It is just a completely different world. Or take a song like Burn by Deep Purple, which is a lot of the whole verse is drum fills all the way through from beginning to end. And then in the choruses and the solo sections, it's a much more straightforward beat. But it's interesting to hear how music was done back then. And there was some of this going on to the first Uriah Heep album, I would say, too, because we were still kind of in that time. That was still going on, but it did settle down, I think, a little bit by Look at Yourself. Wasn't so much during the verses where you had all these fills going on underneath of them. It does make it difficult to mix as an engineer. I can tell you, trying to fight for that space is really tough. So good job. I mean, I think it's mixed. The drums are slightly loud. The vocals are slightly loud, but I think it's because they're competing for that space with each other as opposed to anything else. Maybe a little panning could have helped with that. But in any case, overall, I really like the mix. The song's got some great energy. It's getting a little jazzy. It's pretty cool. I don't know if this song was known in the public. I don't know if these songs ever got released or if they were just demos that were being shopped to record companies to be picked up as a band. I'm not really sure what the destiny of these songs was, but this progression right here on the piano and guitar, because it sounds like Mick and Colin are following each other just with very staccato hits here. But this particular progression is very similar to a song that Deep Purple would go on to record a few years later called I'm Alone. I think that would have been on Fireball, which was 71. So like 2 years after this. But it's the same progression in the background during the verse and the solo, just the staccato and the staccato piano and guitar there. Really interesting because maybe Uriah Heep inspired "I'm Alone" by Deep Purple. Who knows? Speculation. Fully admit speculation. I'm not saying that as fact, but I will say that it is the exact same progression.
I want you, baby.
What a great progression that is. I love that section. It's a nice change. It certainly makes sense. It flows well with the song, but that is really cool. I'm trying to imagine this song just done with like today's heavy sound, and I think it would just be killer. I think it would absolutely be killer. I mean, you'd have to exchange the piano for Hammond, really heavy distorted Hammond. But I think that this song could just be so powerful. Like, it's a fun song right here. It's like light and jazzy. You could have those elements. You could keep the tempo the same, but imagine this with like Uriah Heep sound from Livin' the Dream. This could be just a killer, powerful song. What a great transition to bring things down. I really like this part. It feels really warm and soft after that crazy last part. Great idea to add and go in this direction. But I'm wondering what that sound is that I'm hearing, because it almost sounds like vocals. Those are very long sustained notes. And I mean, they could have been recorded one at a time in the studio, but I don't think they would have done that. That would cost too much time, which would cost too much dollars because you're paying by the hour. But it could be a keyboard, I suppose. I'm really not sure where it's coming from, but I like it. It's kind of angelic in the middle of all the chaos. Yeah, that's a nice passage. I really like that. I like the changes in this song. It's gone in so many different directions, taken us on quite a journey already. We still have just under 2 minutes to go in the song, so there's still more to come. But I like this. It breaks the song up a little bit. It's gone from, this crazy opening to this jazzy stuff to, this delicate section that still has some kick to it. This song's been quite a journey. I've really enjoyed it. I remember when I interviewed Paul Newton, he said that a lot of the songs that they wrote as Uriah Heep were like, different parts that they had, and they would take those parts and put them together and make a song. And I think that's a lot of the reason too that the parts seem to change so dramatically. I have to wonder if this wasn't maybe done the same way, because the parts are so different. I mean, they fit together really well, but the parts are very different. So I wonder if they were like, hey, let's take this bit of this jam and this bit of this jam and see if they can work together. And, the band, I've said many times on the show how great the band is at transitioning from one part into another, no matter how dramatic the transition needed to be. They've always been good at that. So I wonder if this was something that just came out naturally, or if this was something that maybe these different parts were stitched together and, a song was created. I don't know. This part's a little weird. The hi-hat seems to have dropped out, and it feels suddenly a little bit more start and stop than it does just a continual piece of music. I know that's very common for them to do. They like to throw their stops in there. So I don't know if that was the intent here or not, but it definitely has a little bit different of a feel right now. Well, a very cool, nice twist ending there. Thought it was over, but it wasn't. And then ends with a little bit of lighthearted laughter. Yeah, really cool song. I think that this was one that was really kind of dismantled and then eventually put into other songs. Whether that was a conscious thing or not, it may not have been. A lot of times I'll sit there and I'll be playing on a piano or a keyboard or something, and I'll come up with an idea. I'm like, I really like this, and I start developing it, and I realize it was an idea I'd come up with years ago. Or one time, I don't remember what the song was, but I'd written this whole part out, and I really loved it. I thought, wow, how has this not been done? Because it had been done. It was a Metallica song that just the way that I was playing it, I wasn't connecting it to the original song because I wasn't doing it with their sound or anything like that. So, I mean, it could very well have been a subconscious thing, but I definitely feel bits of those two songs that I mentioned earlier. Either way, a very cool song. It's been really cool digging into the origins now that we've seen the whole history of the band, seeing how they started, where they've come from, back to where they started, and really amazing the progression that this band has had over the last 52 plus years. Just incredible. And I've enjoyed doing every show. Thank you guys that have tuned in to even one show, let alone all of them. I know there's people that have been here since the very beginning who've listened to every episode. Thank you guys. Thank everybody. It's really been just an amazing journey for me too. And I have to say, for the most part, it's living the dream for me to be able to share the music of one of my favorite bands and dive in so deeply to each one of the songs. On my other show, I do a lot of album reviews now, but the difference is that I don't play the whole song. I don't listen to sections and talk about them. I really just talk about my feelings on the overall song. I might point out a thing or two, but basically the difference is the endorsement. With Uriah Heep endorsing me, it allowed me to feel comfortable going ahead and doing this show the way I'm doing it, the way I wanted to do it. Without that, I would just have probably reviewed a handful of these albums the way that I did the way that I do on my other show, where I just play about a 30-second to a minute clip and just discuss the song a little bit. So it's been a great joy to be able to really dig in and show what this band has to offer. Looking back over all these songs, 307 songs, I very rarely have had a problem with the songs. It's usually been what I felt was lack of production, like, the albums that were just everything's in the center and you can't really hear everything that's going on. Things like that have bothered me. But as far as the band, their creativity, their performances, it's very rare that I thought they weren't in top form. There's a couple songs that, those aren't my favorites, but 307 songs, you're not just going to fall in love with every one of them. In fact, I think the fact that I love as many as I do is pretty damn amazing. But yeah, so where do we go from here? So at this point, I've covered everything. I did a live album, which was not my intention, but when Dave White asks you, hey, you want to do a live album, you do a live album. And that was a lot of fun doing live in '73. I think it was very important to the band's history. But yeah, so the intent was to cover everything that they'd recorded. I've done that. Now we're just kind of waiting on the new album. I moved all the interviews over from the Haskincast podcast onto this so that all the Uriah Heep stuff is together. And a lot of people didn't know I did those interviews. So nice to have everything under this one Magicians podcast umbrella. There may be some sporadic episodes between now and the next album release. There's been talk of things that could happen, but so far nothing's come to fruition. So my best advice to you guys at this point would be to just stay subscribed, check every once in a while and see if there's a new episode. Maybe there'll be an interview or something that comes up now and then. When the new album comes out, obviously I'll be doing a new season on the album. But apart from that, it's kind of up to fate at this point. So we'll see what happens between now and then, but thank you guys so much for everyone who's listened, who's enjoyed the show, who's shared it. You guys have been absolutely fantastic as an audience, and I appreciate all the feedback. I appreciate everyone's time and the fact that we all are sharing in the joy of the music of Uriah Heep, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show. And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!